Yeah.
All right, let's
Yeah.
get started. So, yeah, the name of the game is getting everything from review into done by Monday. That would give us roughly 100 story points, which is a little lower than our normal velocity, but we've been dealing with a lot of bugs. So, I'll forgive everyone.
Plus a
Um,
holiday.
so, I guess let's start with Abhishek. Leverage check TX priority for synthetic transactions. I believe this was passing yesterday.
No, some tests are failing. It's because of the encyclic error. I'm not able to resolve it. So I might need Ethan helps on that.
I
Okay.
forgot about that yesterday. I need to go check on it.
All right.
Okay. And in data entry, I have some suggestions from Dennis. So I'm working on that. Once done, I'll be committing those changes today. And again, I'll be asking for you.
Perfect. Um, this is important for us to get done as soon as possible, just for testing purposes. Um, so,
Yeah. Today, once I have done on the data, once I'm done on the data entry part, I'll be picking up that.
awesome. Okay. And then if you'd be able to move your task from validation to done, that would be great.
I'm trying
Um,
to move that, but somehow I'm not able to get the drop down for that done part is blinking for me. It's not static.
all right, I'll just move it to done if it's been merged. Uh, so that you're not able to click down on the validation.
No, I'm not able to click down on the next page when that uh, this done. Yeah, it's blinking for me. I'm not sure the
Oh,
browser is.
all right. So I'll just say done. I'll move that to done. All right. All right. Dennis, deprecate use of persistent peers.
Yeah, so the basics of that one are done. I
Okay.
went through and I'm cleaning up some stuff. And I pulled a thread that was requiring a lot of changes or refactoring stuff. So I'm contemplating whether or not to keep that in there or not. So otherwise,
Okay.
I hope that this wrapped up today.
Yeah, I guess let's go for minimally viable. If it's
Yeah,
gonna.
but there's important changes, I think. So that's the
Okay.
thing.
Sure. And then the performance tasks. Okay. Um, Ethan, you're working on. So this needs to be. Was Paul going to review this one, Ethan? Or I guess it's the build's failing.
Which one is that? Oh, Dennis approved that. I'm fighting with little bugs and stuff. So I'm working on the CI. That one should be done. So Dennis approved it. I just need to get CI working, which I think I almost have done.
Okay. That sounds good. Synchronize global values. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. I guess there's a Jira bug that it doesn't have a branch connected to it.
I made it in 3 separate branches and 3 separate merge requests. So the branches are under the subtasks.
Gotcha. So that's ready for review. Okay. All right. So I guess you just have the part 2 and 3 to clean up. And then if you have time to move your task from validation to done, that would be great. Make transaction IDs routable. Is this for synthetic transaction IDs as well, or just
all of them?
Okay. Useful snapshot. Okay, cool. All right. So Jonathan and I found a bug. Not necessarily, well, sort of. It's if you are sending tokens to a light token account, you can change the receiver to an invalid light token account address, and these,
Yeah, we can fix this in the CLI, I guess.
yeah,
The issue is that even the invalid token URLs, when sent as the receiver address, the transaction error status is not popping up. Transaction gets rejected at some stage, but the user does not get any feedback.
yeah. So it's showing the synthetic transactions are passing when they shouldn't be. Um,
Would you write up a bug report detailing what you did and what you expect to happen?
sure.
That's because if there is, I mean, if something is, well, it sounds kind of like either the synthetic transaction is failing and you're not seeing it, or the synthetic transaction is not failing when it should be. And either of those situations I want to fix in the
Yeah.
protocol.
It could also just be that the validation script isn't picking up that
The transaction is definitely failing because the balance is not getting changed.
yeah,
The
but
issue
it's
is
not
that
showing
we are
it.
not getting any feedback. It is providing a transaction hash. So
Okay.
Ben can write it up maybe.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
write it
So
up.
I want to investigate that to figure out exactly what's happening.
Yeah. So the sender address, when we even send incorrect address, the transaction is somehow not providing the error report.
Yeah, Ben and I ran into a similar problem yesterday on the Explorer, actually.
That was
And
fun.
yeah, so I kind of deep dove into tracing the transactions, synthetic transactions, and it does show failures, but like in the Explorer's case, it wasn't picking up that a synthetic transaction failed along the way. So I think it might be a similar issue in the CLI.
So is the synthetic transaction not being recorded as having failed?
No, it gets recorded as failed, but it's not being picked up. The Explorer isn't doing its job in going through and checking each synthetic transaction to make sure that the transaction passes. It assumes that one passed and it's all good. And I think the
Okay.
CLI may be doing the same thing. And also the CLI, if you don't put it in the JSON output mode, it will not give you enough information of whether it passed or failed. So that's
Yeah.
human
Yeah. One of
readable.
the things I want to do during cleanup is we're kind of in we have the air handling situation is not particularly pretty at the moment. We kind of have at least two different ways of propagating errors. So I think we need to. I think one of the things we definitely need to do in cleanup is consolidate the air handling so that it's less complicated than it is right now for clients to figure out what went wrong.
Yeah, and then Dennis and I were sort of recommending a change in how the Explorer shows the status of transactions, because saying delivered isn't necessarily the best terminology
Yeah,
to use.
I think in general we need to focus on transaction flows. So that's a
Exactly.
term from the white paper, but the
Yeah.
transaction flow being the signature and the user transaction and any synthetic transaction it produces and all of that stuff. So I think in the UI and in how we talk to users, we need to shift focus from away from an individual transaction to the transaction flow, because I think that will reduce some of the confusion and make things clearer.
Yeah, Dennis and I sort of set up like a test case of green is the transaction succeeded, yellow is the synthetic transactions processing, or I guess the regular transactions processing, and red is a transaction failure. So there'd be some way of identifying the path or the flow, like you're saying, what's failing and what's
Well, I mean, if any of it if any of it fails, then it all should be considered failed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's where I
Okay.
have it at the end here. Like the transaction ID could be, because that's the thing, is that the transaction ID could be valid, but the synthetic transaction ID could then fail. But then you could have another synthetic transaction ID that passes to refund the tokens.
Yeah, I think some of this is a matter of the underlying system versus abstractions we should put on top of it.
Yeah,
So,
I
in the
agree.
system underneath, we have these individual transactions, and each one gets delivered and passes or fails. Um, but that's not particularly useful. So changing at the low level, changing delivered or trying to change the transaction status after the fact is going to get messy. At the high level, um,
Should we just
we
be displaying the transaction ID to users and just saying failed or succeeded?
I think the only statuses that matter are pending, executing, failed, or succeeded. So pending meaning the user transaction hasn't been signed yet, executing meaning the synthetic transactions haven't completed yet, and then all or nothing, failed or succeeded. And anytime you reference any part of the transaction flow, I think it would make sense to give the user all of that.
Yeah, then you have the scenarios where you have a token transaction with like 20 output. You may have 19 pass and one fail. So that's the other.
Okay, mine is token transactions. It's easy.
Yeah. So if anyone, I guess it'd be good to create a document and everyone could add their input as to what the UI should be and the terms. So I'll start that document and we can go from there.
Ethan, can we implement a check in here itself? Because anyhow, we are going through all the synthetic transactions in this task.
Implement a check where?
Here we are going through all the synthetic transactions and printing them out, right? So there must be a status if the synthetic transaction is passed or not. So this is the way it is printing out.
So you do the weight, shows the transaction hash, the synthetic transaction, another synthetic transaction, both of them.
I
Receive.
think we need to improve this. I want to, stick with small changes. So I don't want to, in the synthetic transaction failure output task, I do not want to expand that to improve the, user experience to make it more comprehensible.
Well, part of this, the reason why I wanted this is for the QA testers.
I know. I'm just saying we should make small changes and get them merged and keep each change limited in scope.
Yeah, we can merge this, and then if there's a Jonathan, if you want to write up a ticket for outputting this in a cleaner way, I feel like that would be appropriate.
Yes, I'll discuss with Ethan offline and
Okay.
make something up.
The other issue that we're running into, I don't know if it's the tool itself, but when we're trying to figure out where a account is being routed to in terms of what BVN it's going to, all of them are saying that they go to BVN 0. Also, if you input a random string of text, it gives you a BVN that it's on, which shouldn't happen. So there needs to be some validation going on there.
Wait, so if you input a random string, why shouldn't that work?
Well, I guess if you're doing like ACC : / ben / keybook, and that ADI doesn't exist and that keybook doesn't exist, it shouldn't route you to.
I do not want the routing tool to have to. So the routing is not dependent on whether or not an account exists. So we would to make that fail, we would have to artificially add a check to query, does this account actually exist? And then it wouldn't work if you were trying to figure out where a light account is going to go.
I guess
So, I mean, I guess my point is you can route anything, whether, anything that you might create or that you have created. It doesn't, routing is not dependent on whether or not it exists yet.
Yeah, is there any way to add a check of some sort?
Why?
Just so when we're testing, if we put something in that's invalid, it doesn't show us a BV. So I guess, I guess, why don't we address the first issue that the output, everything is BVN 0 for all.
I mean, we can put a check to make sure it's either a valid light account or a valid ADI, but I don't see any particular reason to do a query to make sure that the thing you're looking for exists.
Yeah, that's fine. If it's just valid, I just don't want it to end up testing stuff that's invalid and taking that output as gospel.
I mean, the routing tool is designed so that you can make a test that the intention of the routing tool is so that you can write tests and be guaranteed that your accounts will get routed to different VPNs on the test net.
Yeah, so I guess
So
we're finding that not to be the case.
Well, I mean, it sounds like there is a bug, but that's the BVN 0 bug is distinct from the you can write whatever you want
Correct.
issue.
Yeah, they're two different things. So I'll put in a ticket to that. It's just the tool is just outputting BVNs.
Well, the merge request isn't actually closed yet, so I can
okay, that's fine.
tweak it in the merge. Well, I guess that's a different merge request, but anyways.
Okay, yeah, if you could address that, that'd be great.
Speaking of, are you guys satisfied with the signing and hashing tool?
I am. Raj is still having issues with it, so if you're able to meet with him after the stand-up, if you have some time, that would be great. It worked for me yesterday, so it could have been the presence of you, Ethan, that made it work, which happens sometimes. But
I certainly hope my tools work without me.
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind meeting with Raja, we went through all the steps and still getting signing errors. So I couldn't figure out why. Okay, so I guess for all intents and purposes, this task is done, and I'll add that bug. Paul's working on that. Pablo, any updates on the performance analysis task?
Working on it, running into some interesting, I don't even say problems. Everything's okay. Just I'm trying to make the output variable for us. Like
Okay.
Dennis asked me to do it.
Sure. No, sure. VPNs. Okay. So are we going to, I guess we'll just test for the two nodes or the two BVNs that we have. You're testing this locally. So
Yes, for now locally.
Okay. Do you have, as part of this ticket, do you have testing the beta testnet?
I was thinking about it. As soon as I will be ready to have a useful output, I will ask permission and probably run it over the beta.
All right, sounds good. And Sanders you got a few tasks in review. Sander here? Yes, I think I see. There we go.
Yep.
All right, so the major block API task. So that's in review. Cool.
Did it pass?
this is also looking like it's passing, and the rounding error for the validator's threshold. Awesome. Cool. There's sort of one issue I'm finding with the Explorer right now, which I'm talking to Anton about. I've just been using Tesla for fun. It's showing so there's currently, as far as I know, no way to show it. It's showing blocks that the account has touched, as opposed to blocks that the whole network is contributing transactions to. So I don't know if a different Anton was suggesting a different API needs to be created. Are you guys sort of aware of that?
Wait, can you state the problem again?
Yeah, so I would like there to be just a page dedicated to blocks, not blocks dedicated to an account. So like there should just be a, what's that?
Okay, yeah, I mean that's okay. So go on.
Is that do we have an API for that, or was the API specific?
That is what the API is designed for.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
the API allows you to specify a URL, but the fact that you can specify an account is kind of a side effect.
so you should be able to specify the BVN, right? And then see all the blocks for that BVN.
If you specify an account, it will give you the blocks for the BVN that account routes to.
Blocks.
So basically, the block API is kind of a routing tool.
So, for instance, am I wrong to say that these minor blocks contain? Well, I guess this doesn't work, but they would contain transactions that the ADI was a principal for.
No, those minor blocks are the blocks for the BVN that account routes to. So let's say that routes to BVN1, then that list of minor blocks is identical to the list you'd get if you were looking up the blocks for BVN1.
So these are all BVN1 blocks.
Well, assuming it routes to BVN1, then yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So again, this is a weird artifact. You're not supposed to query the block API with an account. That's not the intent. It happens to work, but that is not the intent. The intent is that you query the block API with DN or BVN-BVN0 or BVN-Zion or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
As a side effect, if you query it with an account, that is, the response is identical to if you queried it with the BVN that account routes to.
Yeah, that's a bit bizarre. Okay, I understand now. I'll message Anton and tell him that they should be for the block page should be specifically for a DN account and the BVN accounts.
The block page, I think should be,
or probably the home
blocks
page.
For the DN. I mean, I think it should just say blocks. We should just have a blocks page, a minor blocks page that just has blocks. And when you click on, and in the back end, those are the DN blocks. And when you click on a given block, the Explorer should look through for BVN block anchors and return and query those. So basically, as far as the user is concerned, there aren't BVN blocks and DN blocks. There's only just blocks.
Okay, so you want to have the BVN. You want to be able to click on a BVN anchor, and it will route to the DN block that the anchor is a part of.
I'm saying that we should have a blocks page
just for DN blocks
on the Explorer. I mean, just like Factom, just same thing as Factom's Explorer. where there's just a list of blocks. And maybe we have directory blocks and not directory blocks. But the point is that you go to the home page and you go to the blocks page and there's a list of blocks, and you click on a block and it tells you what's in the block. That's basically what I want. So the user doesn't need to care about BVNs or the DN. The user should not need to care about the structure of the network.
But the DNs aren't going to show. The DNs are just going to show an artifact of the BVNs as opposed to the transaction.
So when you click on a BVN, when you click on one of those blocks, which in the back end are BVN blocks, the Explorer should list all of the click on a block that is a DN block.
Yeah.
When you click on a directory block, the Explorer should display all of the stuff that happened. It should display the directory block plus all of the BVN blocks that were anchored into it. So the Explorer should just pretend like they're the same thing.
Okay. I understand. Okay, I'll create a ticket for that. I guess that does it. Talk to you all tomorrow.